The first book of Moses, Bereshith, chapter 1, first creation by Ephraim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Ephraim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Shishak rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light Elohim called out the name Ya'um, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayas, or the Paleo-Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo-Hebrew scriptures.
The second Exodus, the better Exodus, the resurrection of Ephraim. Those are the wrong Eams, and Manna and the Millennial Kingdom, which of course begs in mind the poop problem. My name is noelhadley. This is the Unexpected Cosmology, and of course, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Hopefully, I assume that you all survived your week. I sure did. Hopefully you had a good week. I had a very good week. You're about to find out how good it was. First, I want to start out going through an email that I received this week. I will not be showing you because if I did, it would be like redacted, like with a bunch of black lines, like when the government releases, when they become transparent with you. But, just for this person's privacy, I don't want to give anything away. But it was a very nice email for the following reason. The individual starts out writing this. Hi, Noel, I have just finished watching your Torah portions week 15. So if I'm counting correctly, this is week 16 we're on. This would have been last week. About halfway through, you started speaking about keeping Passover this year and said, I feel like someone out there needs to hear this. And I think you may have been speaking to me. Now, pause. This is one of the reasons I am reading this. I have, in the history of this channel, you could probably count on two hands, if not one hand, 5 fingers, the amount of times that I have paused in a video and I said, you put like the charismatic hand out there, and there is somebody out there right now that needs to hear this. And it's true because, I'm not a charismatic person. You guys all know that. I don't need to explain that to you guys. But there are moments where I'm up here talking where I feel a heavy push, like this heaviness from the Ruach HaKodesh that I need to emphasize that somebody needs to hear something out there. And I haven't been keeping good track of this, but I am under the impression that every single time I have done that, that one person has come forward to me and confessed that they were that one person. And it's always been one person every single time. It is, for those of you who have been following all my videos, Hunter Tylo has stated a couple times now that one of my altar calls invites out there was during my Matthew study when I said there's that one person out there that somebody needed to go and that Yah didn't want our sacrifice. He wanted us to go make up with a brother or sister we have offended. And talk about the fruit of an altar call, right? And that she came forward as a result of that. Anyways, keep reading. She says, I am completely new to this, meaning to the Torah, And I just found your channel less than a year ago. This is the exciting part right here. I have never kept Passover, but I, well, actually, this is all exciting. The part where she discovers me comes later. Excuse me. I have never kept Passover, but I do feel like God is leading me to your channel. I'm wondering if you can give me some direction. Now, she goes and names her children. She has 4 children, and they are all teenagers or in their 20s. So they're on the older end. And she says, so not little anymore. And she says that I think my husband will not agree that we should keep Passover, but I do think he will show respect if I do. Now, this is kind of the fun part right here. She says, this is an entirely new journey for me as I found Q in 2024. That would be your QAnon. No, she doesn't say QAnon because she is a true Anon, I suppose. She calls it Q. She found Q in 2024, which led me down many rabbit trails. And then, of course, led me to finding God again. Well, that's exciting. And she says, listening to a Q podcast call-in show one night, someone had mentioned your YouTube channel, and I discovered it. That individual, I believe, was Millennial Kingdom of Christ Happens. So thank you for that. He did go on a show and he started talking about the unexpected cosmology. And we had several people who did identify that they watched that and they came over and they discovered the Torah through that. Imagine that, discovering the Torah through the QAnon conspiracy. Well, so I'm very appreciative of that. And she says that any help or direction you could give would be wonderful. So the reason I'm reading this off is because, again, I feel that I know that there are people who are tuning into these Torah portions where this is all new. This is the first time you're going through the Torah. You didn't go through the last cycle. This is all new information, and you're trying to figure out how to live your lives accordingly. So I'm just going to give some quick advice on this because we are coming up in the next couple months. And number one, the instructions for keeping Passover can be found in Exodus 12. We went over that last week. It's really quite simple. And so let me just say, for everyone out there, your desire to keep the Passover is commendable. And there are many others out there like you who are going through this where you do not have a spouse on board or children on board. And by children, I'm not talking about toddlers. We're talking about you have raised them in a certain way that you no longer agree with those ways. You're now trying to follow a biblical lifestyle. You're trying to walk the narrow path. And now maybe your spouse and your children, they may think you are crazy for doing so. And this is very commendable, very, very difficult to do. So quickly, for anyone out there, if you have not kept Passover, guys, it doesn't have to be anthropological. It doesn't have to be scary. Really simple. Read Exodus 12 for yourself and follow his directions. But let me just explain this right here. You roast a lamb over the fire with bitter herbs and eat it with unleavened bread. It's a very easy menu. It's not that hard. Ensure that all the unleavened bread is removed from your house before sunset, and that would be activated unleavened. All right. We're not going through a storage warehouse and removing all the unactivated unleavened bread. We're talking loaves of bread. We're talking cookies. We're talking pastry items. You do not need to remove uncooked pasta. Some people might disagree with me out there. Just take it up with scripture, figure that out. It's not that difficult. Enjoy your meal after dusk. We're talking about the lamb with the bitter herbs. It is to be eaten inside your house, not outside. It's an angel of death thing. Leave no leftovers. Anything that is left from this lamb needs to be thrown into the fire and burned before sunrise. And of course, this is going into the first day of unleavened bread. So it's a high holy day. There's actually 2 of them, the first and the 7th day. Unto Yahweh. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated for people who want to take part in this meal. We are told in Exodus chapter 20 that foreigners, temporary residents, and hired workers may not eat the meal. Only circumcised individuals in a covenant with Yahweh, and this could include slaves as well, as supposing they are circumcised. And so we've run into this before, and I explained this last week, and I want to go over this again. We have run into this in the past, this question. Just making up a scenario right here. You got a woman. She wants to follow the ancient path. She wants to follow Yahweh. She is married to maybe an individual who's not interested in that. They have lived their whole lives in Christianity. That's good enough for him. He's once saved, always saved by grace kind of individual. Read Paul's letters. Why are you reading the Torah? Whatever. I got a wife that's kind of gone off the deep end with this. The wife wants to keep Passover. And let's say she has a husband that, maybe he's not circumcised. And here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to ever divide families at all. I don't want to say, sorry, you cannot take part in what your wife is trying to do here. If you have family member, and I don't want to tell you anything that is breaking the law. So if this goes against Torah, if this goes against the spirits of the Torah, then forgive me for this. And I don't want to lead anyone astray. But if you have family and they're like, we want to support you in this and we want to observe this with you, they can be Passover observers. They can come down to the meal and observe it with you. Because again, I don't want to divide spouses apart. But here's the key with all this. Let me say one more thing too. I've talked to parents with young children, and they're just coming into this. And I tell them, like, make it nostalgic, right? Because that's the power of Christmas. This is why people are so into Christmas, and it's also what makes people so bitter against it too. Is nostalgia. Nostalgia can be used for good or evil, and the reason people are so hooked into Christmas is the nostalgia element of it. So I tell people, like, make Sabbath nostalgic, man. Make your children grow up and go like, I want to replicate that in my home. I love the Sabbath day. The same thing with the feast days, right? Make it fun for children. Go out there and put blood on your door and be like, the angel at death is coming, right? It's way better than Santa Claus. Tell them not literally that night, but that it happened on this time. And again, it is replicated with Messiah. And of course, it ensures that we will not enter the abode of the shadow of death. We will be with our Father in heaven. Make it fun, right? But now, if you have older children, you have an older family, this is my advice to you. Really, really push the New Testament element of it. Show that Messiah, on the night he was betrayed, he broke the bread. He had, as the Jews or Jesus would say, he had the Seder dinner. He was observing the Passover. We don't need to go in the whole debate about why he had a different calendar than the Jews on the following day. Nevertheless, on the following day, he was the Passover lamb, and they sacrificed him. They brought him in on the 10th day of the triumphal entry. They brought him into their gates. They chose their Passover lamb. They sacrificed him. He became the atoning sacrifice. He is Passover. And this is what we're talking about tonight. The second Exodus, or you could say the second Passover, is the greater Exodus. It's the greater Passover. So I just gave away the ending right there for you. And it's really talk about that and saying this all points to Messiah. And then from a Christian perspective, people are going to be like, hey, that's not so threatening. Okay, that's not so anthropological. We love Jesus. We saw, okay, cool. We'll have a meal. But I think that the key here is to invite them into the process. Don't force it on people. Be like, look, I'm your mother, and I love God so much, and I want to have this. I want to have this meal, and I'm inviting you all. If you don't want to be part of it, you're grown up now. You've made your own choices. You don't have to be a part of this, but I'm inviting you in, and make it attractive. Make Yah's righteousness attractive and fun, and they can make that decision. All right. So here we are talking about week 16, Paleo Exodus, chapter 13 through 17. We're going to be going through the Red Sea today. But first, just a reminder, Tech 2026. I know we're like 7-8 months off, something to put on the calendar. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be epic this year. Again, I will have information to give you when I have information. It's not this week, just something to constantly be on your mind. We are very excited to be partnering up with Ancient Paths. That would be Carly. We've had her on twice now for a live Q&A on Sunday. She gives a talk. If you haven't checked those out, we have updated our store with a bunch of her products. And so if you go into our store, Tuck Store, there's like a health and wellness link. There's also Ancient Paths is in health and wellness. You can click on that. You can see all her stuff, some really awesome stuff. And of course, her website is there too on each of those products. So you can go to her website. She gives consultations. You can talk to her. A lot of people are talk to her. Just amazing woman. Of course, Paleo Hebrew Scriptures. I will have, hopefully, Yah willing, an announcement for you guys in about a month from now about the progress of the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures. For those of you in the community know that I did have to cut all fundings of the Paleo-Hebrew Scriptures, unfortunately, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Created quite the stir. I could no longer afford to pay Pamela and Rebecca, and I could no longer tell them to work on it as a result. And it had a result where Pamela and Rebecca were like, we're doing double time, and they just got in there, and they are about finished with the completed Torah. Now I know we've put out the books individually, but it's going to be one book, chapter and verse, and they've been showing me the early drafts of it, and I'm just blown away at the beauty. It is going to be so beautiful, guys. I cannot wait to have the whole book in my hand and to and pass it out. And y'all willing, we're going to be in business. So if it is on your heart to support them, support me, support this ministry, what we're doing, please do so. There are the links below. I've talked to you guys about the Torah portion study guide. A lot have been happening here. So want to cover this too. We have stocked up on a bunch of, behind me on this shelf, a lot of Polyharp books. We've never had My Flat Earth before. We have that, but we actually have a lot of his books, and they're all signed by him. I drove down to Savannah to pick them up. And if you want books, it's one of the ways you can support us as well. He was so kind with that. And yeah, get your own Polyharp signature. Of course, there's Rakia. That is our poetry wing. And we have premiered Vicki Joy Anderson, her book on the Pilgrim's Progress, The Weary Wayfarer, all told through poetry. And it is beautiful, beautiful poetry, great for homeschooling. But submit your poems, guys. Let's make this community effort. And eventually maybe it'll go on outside the community. Right now I'm focusing on the community. Submit your poetry. Let's put it on the website. I'm going to be putting a chapbook together. And just one of the ways hopefully will unify us all the more. These may already be gone. This is our very own Jason Beck. He has come on several times onto Talk. He is a member of the Discord community. I premiered all 3 of his books in physical form for the first time ever. They sold like hotcakes. They may be gone at this point. Not sure yet. We may have a couple left. So get them while you can. There's The Weary Wayfarer. There's He Walked the Americas. Those are selling pretty well as well. We got them in stock again after they were out for like a year and a half. But they are back in limited supply. The Lived Religion. If for those of you who watched the extra biblical panel, I brought the man on who actually did compile this book, The Lived Religion, and he will be doing a line-for-line study with me in about a month's time. Something to look out for. Get yourself a copy, and look forward to that. And this is a book that I've been actually really busy this week. I got 2 things out this week on top of all of my other duties. I was able to finish the compilation of The Lost World of the Christian Martyrs. This is a part of my Lost World series in which I compile extra biblical books. And this one focuses on, from Polycarp forward, all the accounts going through the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century, really about 300 years of multiple martyrdom accounts. It's a very jarring account. It's a type of genre of literature that is so far removed from Western thinking that people will read this and just go like, holy cow. It's like this kind of martyrdom material. It's not like just choosing between the rack, the wheel, the wax, the boiling cauldron, the fire, or the animals, or the torturer. It's like you might get all of them and they still can't kill you off. And then finally you get beheaded at the end. It's crazy material. But at the end of the day, people can say, well, this doesn't fit my worldview today. Well, it did theirs back then. You had for hundreds of years, this is what Christians were reading. And of course, it culminates at the very end with St. George, which I've done a lot of work on. And one last thing before we get into this tonight is Tuck issue 12. I have it has it has been commemorated with the really honorary issue 88. Some of you will get that. Some of you will not. Most of you will get it. Few of you won't. But this is the legendary, it will go down in legend. The issue that will never be released, most likely, is the one I did on Hunter Tylo. I had a whole magazine spread ready to go. A lot of people who contributed to it, and I had to cancel that over legal reasons, not between Hunter and me, but just the world out there. Until we release the book, it will never be seen. So this is mine on Back to the Future was a time travel movie, The Wizard of Trump, time traveling president, Tomorrowland, and Back to the Bible, time traveling scripture. And I love this issue. So pick up your copy. It's been like 3 years in the making to get to issue 12. Finally finished it. And let's get right into this. The Lord's Prayer. The Didache says that we should be reciting this prayer 3 times a day. Now, I'll remind you that in the Didache, I don't see it as leaven. I do not see it as command. I see the Didache more as a pamphlet for people who are just coming into the Christian church. They're coming out of paganism, and they're trying to wrestle them away from the Judaizers, who are the Pharisees. They're trying to suck them into their death cult. And they'll say okay, well, the Pharisees, they fast on these 2 days of the week. I think it's like Monday and Wednesday or something like that. And so they're like, whatever you do not fast on those days. Fast on different days. It's not given a command. It's just saying keep away from the hypocrites. And it's the same thing with this. They're like, look, just, the Pharisees go out there and they pray 3 times a day with their long-winded prayers out in public. Just go privately, pray this. This is how Messiah taught us to pray. The Lord's Prayer. And the standard goes like this. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And of course, the paleo goes as follows. Our Father, set apart is your name, and your royal dominion, your pleasure, your delight, you will exist in Shamayam and in Arats. And give us our bread continually, and pardon our faults, our sins and missteps, in the same manner in which we forgive those who commit faults, sins, missteps against us. And all do not bring us into the hands of testing, but guard us from all evil. Amen. I do want to play this real quick. I didn't ask this individual's permission. He is a researcher here at the Unexpected Cosmology. He's a very good researcher. I've had him on a couple months ago, and his name is Rockman. And here is his video. I think you're all going to like this.
I just finished climbing this ridge here. Took me about an hour, but it was worth it because the view is absolutely incredible. And I'm probably the first human to ever come up here. Well, except for maybe the guys that put these power lines in.
So thank you for that, Rockman, for that incredible research. Please keep it up. And send us your findings. And of course, anybody else, I'll be happy to play your videos if they're short on Sabbath, because this is a community gathering, and I want to celebrate the community. And one more thing too, before we do get into the depth of the study tonight, I have a lot I want to talk about. Ancient Paths, Carly sent this in today, and so I wanted to play the video. I think it's going to show me on the side, so I'm going to try not to make any goofy faces, whatever. Just try not to stare at my mug. But here is Carly. She had a quick little message she wanted to send to the community today. I did not prompt her or ask her to do this. She did this by her own tug that she felt.
Shalom, friends. This is Carly with Ancient Paths. I woke up this morning with Pamela and Rebecca heavy on my heart, just thinking about the mission to help fund the paleo translation, but not only that, to help these widows make their living, to be able to pay their bills, to be able to eat. And I just got to thinking that, the Unexpected Cosmology has 20,000 subscribers. Now, that number should probably be more because of shadow banning and all that. But if every single subscriber to the Unexpected Cosmology donated $1, just $1, imagine what that could do for these 2 women and for this ministry in general. So I'm putting this out there. This is a challenge to see if we can get every single person who subscribes to this channel to donate at least $1. If you feel led to donate more, 5, 10, 15, 20, more than that, awesome. But just think about what we could do, the impact that could make. And guys, I know that the economy stinks right now, that finances are tight. Like I'm feeling that in my family and my business as well. But $1, we can all spare $1. We can all spare $5 probably. Just, give up your coffee through the drive-thru or whatever. But yeah, that was on my heart this morning, and I wanted to share that. So I'm putting that challenge out there to this community, to the Unexpected Cosmology subscribers, and to those who are more involved in the community. Let's rally around these women. Let's help support them. Let's help them pay their bills and help them bring this paleo translation to its fullness, because that's what we really want to see. So hope this message blesses you. Their PayPals are going to be in the comments below, so you can PayPal them directly, or you can just donate to the Unexpected Cosmology and put a note that it's for the Widows Fund for the paleo translation, and Noel will get that to them. So let's make it happen, guys. We can do it. We can raise $20,000 if everybody donates $1. Shalom.
Well, thank you, Carly, for that. And like I say, that was unexpected. That came into my the Unexpected Cosmology, right? It came to my mailbox today. I thought I'd share it. All right. With no further ado, let's get into this tonight. We are reading from Exodus 13 through 17. I'm going to read through the whole thing just to make sure I get the Torah portion in, and then we could deal with the fun research at the end. And he will exist when Pharaoh sent away the people. Elohim did not lead them the way of Arats to the Philistines, the Phalashathuyam, although this was near, for Elohim declared, lest the people lament in observing battle and turn back unto Matzarim. Now, it doesn't explicitly say here, like it seems like you could read that to mean that they would have battle with the Philistines. The Philistines would, like, you can't come into our land. We're going to kill you. But I will be showing you that there was actually, which could happen too, right? That they could have confronted them, but we will see another battle confronted today, and they fought them valiantly. So something else was going on here, and I'll show you what it is in a little bit. Therefore, Elohim turned around the people of the path of the wilderness of the Sawap Sea, or the Reed Sea, the Sea of Reeds, the Red Sea. And as a host arrayed for battle, the sons of Yashruel ascended from Aratz Mitzrayim, and Meshahah took the bones of Yosef with him, for he had caused the sons of Yashruel to swear, declaring, certainly Elohim will visit you, and you shall lift up as a powerful sign my bones from here with you. I think this is so touching that Yosef wanted to stay, like he felt like this shows his quality as a leader. He loved them so much. Yaakov had other intents. He's like, I want you to bury me back in the cave in Mitzpah, because I want you to remember that I don't want you to be grounded here in Egypt, that we have a land over there, and I don't want you to forget your roots as a Hebrew, right? But Yosef, he's like, I want to be here with my children as the second command of Egypt, as the one that has led this government, this country. I want to be here with you until the very end, until the last Marine is out, right? I'm coming up with the last of you here. So they marched from Sakath and pitched in Athum on the borders of Ha-Medabar, the wilderness, and Yahuwah the ever-living walked to their faces by days, veiled over in a pillar of cloud, to guide them along the pathway, and by night in a pillar of fire for a light to them to walk by days and night. He never gave way the veil of the pillar of cloud by days or the pillar of fire by night to the faces of the people. And if you have never thought about this before, we kind of lose track of this when we think about like this fiery pillar up there, and there's this light in a cloud. But if I'm understanding this correctly, and I think I am, Yahuwah, he left, this is a Perusia type of situation where he left his heavenly abode, physically left it, and he actually came down to the earth. And we saw El Shaddai over Egypt, but now it's Yahuwah. Of course, as you know, if you didn't tune in, El Shaddai is like the duality. That is the destruction side that the Egyptians saw in him, but Yahuwah sees the savior side, did I say that right? Israel sees the savior side, which is Yahuwah. But he's actually, the cloud is veiling him. Like, he is walking with them, guys. He is living down on the earth for 40 years with them. walking with them, in front of them. He's behind them, in front of them, and he's being veiled by this cloud. But that is so exciting to think about. That our God, our Elohim, was literally here on the earth, teaching men. Of course, Yahshua did the same thing, and you guys know that I believe Yahshua is Yahuwah. Chapter 14. Then Yahuwah, the ever-living, set words in order to Al-Mashahah, saying, set words in order unto the sons of Yasharel, and they will turn and encamp to the face of Phaya Ha-Hereth, the mouth of caverns, between Magaduel, the great tower, and between the sea, to the face of Baal Zephon, Lord Typhon. I'll have more to say about this in a moment. You shall encamp opposite against the sea, for Pharaoh will say of the sons of Yasharel, they have confused themselves in the land and have shut themselves against the wilderness, and I will make strong the heart of Pharaoh, and he will pursue you, and then I will be made heavy with splendor in Pharaoh, and in all his host, and Mitzrayim may know that I am Yahuwah the ever-living, and they accordingly fashioned it. When it was told in the sight of the king of Mitzrayim that the people had passed through, the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was overturned about the people. Let me quickly say here that I don't know if Moshe told the people, and I think he did. I think that he had very good communication. All indications show he had very good indication with the elders of Israel and the people of Israel, in telling them the plans of Yah, like telling them, hey, Pharaoh's not going to listen to me. And then they don't want to hear that. And they come back and like, you're making our lives miserable, Moses. We just wish you would just go away, right? Stop. Like, they were excited until they're like, oh, you're actually correct in what you're saying, right? It's the same thing here. I think he told them, he's like, guys, I'm just letting you know, Yah just told me Pharaoh is going to pursue us with the whole army. And he's actually drawing them out to destroy them. I don't really think that they listened to him. Maybe some did, but I don't think they wanted to hear it. And I think that, they were just, their hearts were melting when they saw Pharaoh with his whole army coming to annihilate them all. And the last week when I read the account of the destroyer at the Red Sea, according to that, there were some Hebrew slaves at the end of the rank that were just in panic, and they went to their destruction. They didn't make it. And we know that that's the case. We know that. I'll be reading from like the Aramaic Targum tonight that says the same thing. When it was told in the sight of the king of Mitzrayim that the people had passed through, the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was overturned about the people. And they declared, why have we fashioned this, that we have allowed Yasharel go forth from serving us? And he made fast his own chariot and took for himself his host with him. And he took 600 select chosen chariots and all the chariots of Mitzrayim, with 3 men upon each of them. Thus Yahuwah the ever-living made strong the heart of Pharaoh, the Malak of Mitzrayim, and he pursued after the sons of Yasharel. But the sons of Yasharel went forth with a high, lofty hand. Mitzrayim pursued after them all the horses and chariots and horsemen of Pharaoh, like all of them. Like he emptied out, I think, all the stalls of Egypt here, and he's about to lose them all. Imagine, this is like Custer's last stand in a way, but imagine if the U.S. were to empty its entire arsenal to pursue an enemy, and just like you lose it all, it's gone. And this is, of course, the greatest empire on the earth. And he overtook them and camped by the sea against Phaya Ha-Hayeth to the face of Baal Zephon. And Pharaoh approached, and the sons of Yasharel lifted up their eyes, and behold, Mitzrayim ascended behind them, and they were greatly terrified. See, they weren't listening. Like they were not listening. And my thing on this is that I've been in the ministry long enough, and I've explicitly stated this, that running a community is very, very difficult. Running a ministry is hard, but running a community is very, very difficult because I didn't go to college for this, right? I don't have a degree for this. You learn as you go, you make mistakes. But one thing I have learned is that if people don't like what you have to say, they just don't listen. That's just human nature. I'm not attacking anybody. But we see this here with Moses. Like they didn't like what he had to say. They didn't want to listen. And forget me for a second. We can each look at our lives, and we're all like, following Yahshua. We're following Yahuwah, right? And we all want God to work in our lives, but let's be honest, like when he actually works in our lives, how many of us go like, yeah, that was fun. Like, because in the moment you feel like you're at the storm at the ocean and the boat's going to go down and you're freaking out and you're like, this is not what I signed up for. You know, when you join the Marines, right? This is not what I signed up for. And Yah's like, okay, well, if you want me to use you, then buckle up. And that's what he's doing right here. This reminds me actually of like Lord of the Rings, like Tolkien's whole theology, how he's always giving this minority of heroes, and they look like time and again they're just going to be annihilated, and they're surrounded on all sides, and then the creator God comes in and he does something miraculous, right, to show that he is actively working through history. So here you have this case. Mitzrayim ascended behind them, and they were greatly terrified. So the sons of Yasharel cried out to Yahuwah, the ever-living, and they said to Al-Mashahah. So this crying out to Yahuwah, it sounds good. They're like, okay, they're doing the right thing. But you look at the next line, it's like, no, not at all. They said to Mashahah, were the graves in Mitzrayim defective that you snatched us away to die in the wilderness? I mean, again, I have no evidence, but I'm under the impression that Moses did tell them, hey, guys, I'm just letting you know, Yahweh just told me that he's going to draw out Pharaoh with all his chariots. I don't have any spies that told me this. I heard this from heaven, you know, from that cloud up there. That's our God right up there behind that cloud. He actually just reached down and talked to me. He told me this, and they're all going to die, just to let you know. And they weren't listening at all. I can't state this enough. Why have you worked thus for us to carry us forth from Mitzrayim? Is this not the words which we set in order when we explained to you in Mitzrayim? Leave off, cease from us, allow us to serve the Mitzrayim, for it is more pleasant to serve Mitzrayim than we should die in the wilderness. Come on, like, be honest, everyone. Is this not the human experience? Is this not us on our day-to-day as we are trying to buck off God from working in our lives? And it's like, look, I thought, you know, God's telling us, I thought you wanted me to work in your life. I gave you the Holy Spirit. Like I thought, and because we're going to do this my way. And apparently, you know, it's fun on paper, isn't it? But it's not fun in real life. And it's never how we expect it to be. We always think it's going to be a challenge, but Yah's like, okay, well, I've already thought 100 moves ahead of you. And I'm telling you right now, it's not how you're anticipating this to go. And Mashahah declared unto the people, do not be terrified. Stand in place and observe the salvation of Yahuwah. So there it is right there. The salvation, right? This is not the salvation of El Shaddai. The El Shaddai brings destruction. They are experiencing something new, and they are about to be baptized into Yahuwah right here. And observe the salvation of Yahuwah, the ever-living, which he will work to create for you today. For Mitzrayim, whom you observe this day, you shall not observe them yet again for time of long duration, perpetually. Yahuwah, the ever-living, he will wage war for you, and you will be silent. And of course, that's, you know, at the end of the day, we all talk about this. Like, yeah, God, you know, yeah, Elohim, he's going to wage my war for me. But come on, again, like, this is one of the, I think, the big struggles for Sabbath day for a lot of people. And I've confessed this. Sabbath is hard for me. Not because I can't sit on a couch all day. I can do that. I could lay in bed all day. That's not necessarily the issue. But it's that that internal rest of truly, you know, having to deal with the reality that Yahuwah is in control and I am not the captain of my own life. I think that if we're all really honest about that, that this is where we really struggle, saying that like this war is going to be won and it has nothing to do with us at all. Like he could replace any of us and just put someone else in there and do it. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, declared unto Mashahah, why do you cry out unto me? Set the words in order unto the sons of Yasharel. They will go forward. And you lift up your branch and stretch forth your hand over the sea and divide him. And the sons of Yasharel shall enter through the midst of the sea on dry ground. But I will make strong the heart of Mitzrayim, and they shall go forth behind them. and I will become heavy with splendor upon Pharaoh and upon all his army and upon his horsemen. And in the heavy splendor I gain upon Pharaoh and upon his chariots and upon his horsemen, Mitzrayim shall acquire knowledge. For I am Yahuwah the ever-living. And Malach Alahayam, who walked to the face of the encampment of Yasharel, and in the pillar of the cloud, he went from before their face and stationed himself behind them. And he came between the army of Mitzrayim and the encampment of Yasharel. And this is the beautiful part of the duality, the checkerboard duality, where you have the same Alahayam, who is darkness for one, light for the other. And this is, guys, this is the test. People ask me this question. How do you know if Yahuwah is cutting you off or Yahshua is cutting you off? And I say, well, is he darkness for you or is he light? Because I have watched this happen in real time, where I have seen people who do not guard the commands, they do not guard their heart, and they get cut from the team. And all of a sudden you see them online and they're saying things like, they can't believe how stupid and idiotic they were to ever believe the Bible. It's a bedtime story, like things like that. Right. And you're like, how did this person get to that point? Well, it's because they're now seeing they are now on the opposite side of the cloud. They're seeing the darkness, right? They're peering into, they can't see the goodness and the light of Yahuwah. And it says right here, and he will exist a veil of cloud and the darkness to them, but he will enlighten night. And so this one does not approach the other all the night. I also stated this too with the what I call the hidden wilderness, the blessed land. People will make the mistake when I advocate that there is a terrestrial paradise on this earth and that New Jerusalem is actually already here. No, not in the North Pole, but somewhere far off in the realm. And people will go, well, no, like, why can't we see it? Well, I can, of course, show you the extra biblical text, which tells you why, that he surrounds himself with darkness. We are looking at the dark end, and the light end is on the other side. And this is what Yahuwah does. He shrouds himself. And Mashah stretched forth his hand over the sea, and by a strong ruach, Yahuwah the ever-living caused the sea to walk back all night. And he rendered the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. And the sons of Yasharel entered into the midst of the sea, and the waters were to them a wall on the right side and on their left. And Mitzrayim pursued and went after them, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen into the midst of the sea. And in the watch time before daybreak, Yahuwah the ever-living, Yahaya. I love this here, because here we see Yahuwah is on the watch. He's like a watchman on the wall. And he physically looks. He's behind the cloud. He peers around the cloud. He looked out upon the army of Mitzrayim through the pillar of fire in the cloud. I guess it wasn't around it, guys. I guess it was through it. I guess he had a peephole or whatever. He's looking through it, And as a powerful sign, he disturbed the army of Mitzrayim, and he caused the wheels to depart from the chariots. The drivers panted, driving them with difficulty, so that Mitzrayim declared, let us flee from the face of Yasharel, for Yahuwah battles for them against Mitzrayim. Notice here that they're freaking out and the water hasn't even come in yet. It's still a secure wall around them. Their wheels come off first. Then Yahuwah the ever-living declared to Mashah, stretch forth your hand over the sea, and the waters will return upon Mitzrayim and upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And Mashah stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak, reminds me almost like Gandalf there, with like the first rays of light are coming up, just over the horizon. The sea turned back toward his continual flow, and crying out at him, Mitzrayim hastened to flee to safety. But as a lion shakes his mane when he roars. That's an incredible line that Pamela found in there. And I've been giving you Tolkien tonight. Well, I'm about to give you Lewis. How did Mr. Beaver put it? When he shakes his mane, it will be spring again. It shall be spring again. But as a lion shakes his mane when he roars, so Yahuwah shook off Mitzrayim in the midst of the sea. And he returned the waters, and he covered over the chariots and the horsemen to all the host of Pharaoh that had gone after them into the sea. Not even one of them remained. But the sons of Yasharel walked on dry ground through the midst of the sea, and the waters were to them as a wall from the right side and from their left. And Yahuwah the ever-living saved Yasharel that day from the hand of Mitzrayim, And Yashua observed Mitzrayim dead upon the seashore. When Yashua saw the great hand by which Yahuwah the ever-living fashioned to work upon Mitzrayim, and the people reverently feared Yahuwah, and they firmly placed their support upon Yahuwah the ever-living, and in Mishaha, his servants. And again, that's just like the human story. Like I can look back at my life, the last 45 years of my life, and from the time I was 3 or 4 years old, when I started having consciousness, I could look back and I could tell you stories where Yahuwah was firmly planted in my life. He was leading me, guiding me. I could totally see that. I have faith in it. But when you're in that moment, that's, it's easy, right, to look back and be like, I'm a man of faith. Look at my life backwards. It's like, well, how about looking forwards, right? That's where we're truly tested. Verse 15, or chapter 15, excuse me. Then Mishaha and the sons of Yasharel sang this song unto Yahuwah the ever-living, and they boasted, saying, I will sing to Yahuwah, for he is exalted, exalted. He has hurled the horses and his rider into the sea. Yah is my strength and my song of praise. Yahaya, he will exist to me. O Yasha wa Yaha, salvation. And I keep saying this. I don't want to be repeated, but here you see where they're actually discovering, just as he promised, who Yahuwah is. And man, I don't have it. I wish I did now. One of my favorite passages in the Aramaic Targum. I can't believe I missed that tonight, where they wanted to, at that moment, make the word of Yahuwah their king. They wanted to establish him right there as their king. But they realized that would happen in the world to come, which is a sign of the millennial kingdom. And there's another connection to Yahuwah being Yahshua. This is my owl, and I will establish my life on him. I will celebrate. He is my father's Alahaya, and I will exalt him. Yahuwah is a man of battle. Yahuwah is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has cast into the sea. The third man, Pharaoh's most excellent officers, were pressed down like a seal into the sea of weeds. The deep underground abyss covers him over. Kind of make a mental note of that right there, how they're connecting the underground abyss to this Red Sea incident here. He brought them down, plummeting like a stone. Your right hand, Yahuwah, is rendered illustrious. Your right hand, Yahuwah, breaks into pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of your splendor, you have pulled down him who arose against you. She let go the burning heat of your wrath. He will consume them like straw. And in the ruach of your anger, the waters were piled up. He was set in place like a heap. The flowing sea coagulated, contracted upon himself, froze over were the depths in the heart of the sea. The adversary had declared, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will acquire riches, I will be smooth, dividing the spoil. My nefash I will make full with gain. I will empty out with my sword. My hand will take them as an inheritance. I think that's the ultimate definition there of an Indian giver, as politically incorrect as that is. But remember now that we saw in the book of the Destroyer that they couldn't tell the difference between an Egyptian and a Hebrew slave. And so they just started handing out, just in their madness, just giving their all their treasures to other people. They didn't realize that they were Hebrews, which is kind of an interesting explanation when we see that Yahuwah promised in Exodus that the Hebrew slaves would be favorable to the Egyptians. So they didn't take anything from the Egyptians by force. This wasn't like going and breaking their homes and stealing their stuff. Everything that they had, all their treasures, they were just walking down the street and people were coming out, hey, take all this stuff. Like, all right, fine, I'll take your life savings if that's what you want. Yeah, sure. And so now they're coming back for it, right? You blew with your ruach and the sea concealed him, and the great mighty ones were buried like lead in the waters. Who is like you among the Elam? That would be the mighty ones, heroes, or the sons of Allahayam. So who is like you among the sons of Allahayam, the sons of God? Yahuwah, who is like you and set apart fearful praises? Who works wonder in your hasad, your zeal and kindness, desire and favor? You led forth your people, those you brought back, kinsman redeemer, chief shepherd, unto your Kudash dwelling place. That's kind of cool, isn't it? They're actually referring to him there as their kinsman redeemer and their chief shepherd. And of course, who's our chief shepherd is Yahshua. So did we get a switch of hands of the kinsman redeemer and chief shepherd? I'd say no. I'd say that Yahshua is Yahweh. They're still both the same, our kinsman redeemer and chief shepherd. Nations shall hear and obey him. Again, who do the nations hear and obey? It's Yahshua. They will be disturbed, feared, trembling has seized those who settle down to dwell in Phalashath. In that place, the chiefs of Edom were struck with terror. This is Edom here. The rams of Moab trembling took possession of them, and the dwellers of Canaan melted away. Terror and dread will fall over them. In the greatness of your power, they will be astonished, silent still, until your power pass over, Yahweh, until the people whom you have redeemed pass over. You will bring them forth and will plant them fixed, standing upright in the mountain of your domain, the foundation which you fashioned, Yahweh, the consecrated place, Adonai, which your hands have established, maintained. Yahweh, he will reign for as far as the eye can see or observe, to the edge of the horizon and beyond, perpetually. I love that. That's a continuous line that Pamela puts in there, to the edge of the horizon and beyond, meaning that like that's her kind of take on forever, right? In time, like you will never get to this point in the horizon where you can, his mercies and his love and his promises will come to an end. It's think of like the flat earth, where people are like, well, where's the edge of the earth, Noel, or whatever, fill in your name, Frank, where's the edge of the earth? And it's early on in our research, we would say, well, Antarctica and the firmament, but now it's looking like, if you even look at the different planets out there, if they are maps of the earth, going further and further out, like by the time you get to Mars and Jupiter and stuff, like the earth is this, like our whole realm is this little speck on this just infinite plane that just keeps going out and out and out and out. Like you will never, it would take hundreds, thousands, if you could even walk it, right, to get to the end. You just would never get there. It's so far out. For the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his horsemen went into the sea, and Yahweh turned back the waters of the sea upon them. But the sons of Yasharel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Miriam, the prophetess, sister of Aaron, seized hold of the timbrel in her hand, and she went forth, all the women after her. That had to be quite the conga line, with timbrels and with dance. And Miriam lifted up her voice, saying in response to them, sing unto him, to Yahweh, for he is exalted, exalted. The horse and his rider he has cast into the sea, in the midst of the sea. Now there's a song I can memorize right there. It's about 7 lines. I think I can manage that. Probably not too many dance steps to go with it. Not that I would be included in that, because I'm a man and it sounds like only the women join them. Gave the men a break, I guess, to sit down and have a beer or something. The march from the well unto the desert of Maraha. Mashahah pulled up camp, removing Yasharel from the seaweed sea, and they ascended into the wilderness of Shaor. And they walked 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. And they came into bitterness, and they could not bring themselves to drink the waters from Maraha, for they were so bitter. Therefore, they called its name Maraha. And the people passed the night murmuring over Mashahah. Moses didn't even get a honeymoon phase, guys. Like, like in marriage, it's not just a week of the honeymoon. You get a couple months in there, usually, maybe a year for some couples. But man, he didn't even get 3 days. He got like maybe a day in there, maybe 36 hours, and then it was over. They go from this ecstatic high of like all the women forming this conga lines with, with instruments and having a great time. They'd probably be just, I don't know, they were probably drinking. They're probably having a great time. And man, that party crashed faster than you could crash after eating Krispy Kreme donuts. And he cried out unto Yahweh, the ever living, and Yahweh pointed out to him a tree, and he cast it into the waters, and the waters were rendered sweet. He gave it the name Pits of Calamity, and named it Testing. And he declared, if you will hear and obey the voice of Yahweh your Allah, and hear and obey what is upright, just and true, and prick up your ears to listen to his Matzawath, his commands, and guard his established statutes, and all the diseases I placed upon Mitzrayim, none will I place upon you, for I am Yahuwah, the ever-living, your healer. Isn't that awesome? He's given himself another personality trait of the Messiah. The Messiah, Yahshua, is our healer as well. And they came to Ayalah Maha, where there were 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees. Interesting number when we consider the 12 tribes and the council of 70. Of course, the 70 that Yahshua sent out as well to the nations. So representative of all the nations here. They pitched their tents beside the waters. And he pulled up camp from Elam, and the gathered assembly of the sons of Yahshua came to the wilderness of Sion, which is between Elam and between Sinanuya. That would be Mount Sinai, which I actually like Sinanuya a lot better. That's a fun name to say. On the 5th and 10th day of their going forth from the land of Mitzrayim, and the entire gathered assembly of the sons of Yahshua murmured again, right? They just had like this awesome sweet water. Can't make these people happy. Showing themselves obstinate against Meshahah and against Aaron in the wilderness. And of course, this is like quickly going on contempt of court levels here really quickly. And the sons of Yashriel said to him, why did you give us to be destroyed by the hand of Yahuwah, the ever-living? In the land of Mitzrayim, we sat down by the flesh pots, and we devoured bread to satiety. For you have dragged us into the wilderness in order to slay the entire assembly with this hunger. Therefore, Yahuwah, the ever-living, declared unto Al-Mashahah, behold, I will rain upon you bread from Hashamayim, and the people shall go forth and gather the Dabar, the proposed plan, day upon day, to the intent that I may test them to see if they will walk in my instructions or not. And behold, he will exist upon the 6th day, and they will prepare that which they will bring in, and he will exist twice as much as the daily gathering. This is interesting. He says here, like he's saying, let me read this again, that Yahuwah, he's right up there, right above their heads, not more than, definitely not 30,000 feet up. He's probably just, I don't know what, several thousand feet up. He's like right up there. And he's like, I just want to test you guys and see if you will walk in my instructions or not. Very simple instructions. Just want to see if you can follow this very simple instructions. And this is, of course, dealing with the Sabbath day, which is something to this day that the bulk of humanity still cannot figure out. It is so simple. And just setting all the arguments aside about what calendar we're supposed to be on, whatever. Just, guys, 6 days you work, 7th you rest. All right? Not that hard. I had this guy arguing with me recently, and he's trying to quote from Paul or whatever. He's like, the Torah was training wheels. That was my tutor. I don't need that anymore. And I'm like, cool, awesome. So you're keeping the Sabbath, right? He's like, no, because it's like, he was claiming like that the whole thing of the Sabbath was the training wheels. Training wheels for what? For not keeping it? I don't. It couldn't make any sense of that whatsoever. But that's Christian logic for you right there. So Meshahah and Aaron said unto the sons of Yasharel, just before sunrise you shall acquire knowledge, for Yahuwah the ever-living has brought you forth from the land of Mitzrayim, for at daybreak you will observe the heavy weight of splendor of Yahuwah the ever-living, for he hears and answers your murmurings against Yahuwah. And what are we that you should grumble against us? And Meshahah said, in giving to you Yahuwah the ever-living will give you flesh at dusk and at daybreak bread to satiety. For Yahuwah the ever-living has heard and answered your murmurings, which you murmur against him. And what are we? For you not only grumble against us, but against Yahuwah. Then Meshahah said to Aaron, speak unto the gathered assembly of the sons of Yasharel, draw near to the face of Yahuwah, for he has heard and answered your murmurs. It's kind of interesting, right? That's kind of scary to draw near to the face of, what would you do? All right. He's right up there in the cloud, right above your head. And Aaron comes and says, fill in the blank, Katie, Karen, Tommy, Billy, whatever your name is, hey, Bobby, draw near to the face of Yahuwah. And because he has listened to your slander and your gossip, all your murmurings, and wouldn't that put a fear of Yah on you? Like, oh crap, I'm about to go up to his face. And like, this is like part of the test, right? Like, how are you going to respond to this now? And he existed as Aaron spoke of the purpose plan to the entire assembly of the sons of Yasharel, and they faced toward the wilderness, that behold, the heavy weight of splendor of Yahweh the ever-living was observed in the cloud. And Yahweh, so I don't even know what that means there. I mean, it just says you're going to, draw near his face, and now the heavy weight of the splendor of Yahweh is observed. I don't even know what that looks like. It sounds awesome. And Yahweh the ever-living, he will debar, speak of the purpose plan to Al-Mashahad to say, I have heard and answered the murmurings of the sons of Yasharel, set these words in order to them to declare. Between the dust they will devour flesh, and upon daybreak they will be sated with lechem, bread, and you will acquire knowledge, for I am Yahweh, your own ever-living Elohim. And he will exist in dust, that quails lifted up and covered the camp. And at daybreak, there existed a pouring out of dew in a circuit round about the camp. When dust existed, quails lifted up and covered the camp. And in daybreak, there existed a pouring out of dew in a circuit around the camp. And when the pouring out of dew departed, behold, upon the face of the wilderness, minute scales, scales as fine as hoarfrost lay upon the ground. And when the sons of Yasharel observed it, each man said to his brother, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but this would be, what is it? They're looking at this like, what? So people have tried to say it's mushrooms. I said that in the past. It can't be mushrooms, because they don't even know how to classify this. They have never seen it before, ever. I'm sure they had mushrooms in Egypt, guys, for they did not know what it was. And Mashahad declared unto them, this is bread which Yahweh the ever-living has given you to eat. This is the purpose plan, Ha-Dabar, which Yahweh has set up for you. Each man is to gather from it according to mouth's eating, taking an amar per skull of the number of nefash, which each man has in his tent. So however much, you can allotted, each person can eat, gather that. The sons of Yasharel did accomplish it and gathered it, some much and some a small amount, of course, depending on how, what kind of appetite you have and how many people. And he measured by an amar, and none had over and above, he who from a great amount and he who from a small amount. There was no one wanting, every man gathered to the mouth of his eating. And Mashahah said toward them, no man is to leave over from any part until daybreak. But they did not hear and obey Al-Mashahah, and they left over some part of it until daybreak. And crimson worms grew in it, and he stank. And Mashahah was indignant at them, and they gathered at daybreak after daybreak, every man according to the consuming mouths. For when Shamash became warm, it melted. And he existed on the seventh day, that a part of the people went forth to gather, but they obtained none. This is where Yahweh is like, look, I'm right here, dude. I'm right here on this cloud. I gave you the instructions. I'm watching. And this is just the obstinance, the total depravity of human nature, that even if people are in his presence, like, this is the thing that I disagree with Protestantism. And I grew up Protestant, right? That somehow when you're in his presence in heaven, it's gonna be just a robot, just flip of a switch, and you're just gonna obey him. It's like, nope, wrong, sorry, clearly you didn't read the Bible. We can be in his presence, and we will just still just obstinately be like, yeah, I'm not keeping your Sabbath today. I'm just gonna go out here and pick up some sticks, gather some manna, do whatever I want. Consequently, Yahweh the ever-living declared unto Al-Mashahah, how long will you refuse to guard my matzawath and my thu'urath, or my commandments or precepts, and my Torah? So let me say this again. How long will you refuse to guard my commandments and my precepts and my Torah? Observe, for Yahweh has gifted to you ha-Shabbath. That'd be the Sabbath. Therefore, he rightly gifts to you on the sixth day bread enough for 2 days. Every man shall abide beneath his dwelling. No man is to go forth from his place of habitation on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. And as a sign, the house of Yasharel called its name Man. And it was like coriander seed, white. And the taste of it was like flat cake with honey. Mashahah declared, this is the purpose plan which Yahweh the ever-living has set up. A full amar from it is to be kept in custody to the circuit of the ages, for the purpose that they may observe the bread which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you forth from Arat Mitzrayim. And Meshachah said to okay, so clearly, right, they're told to preserve this. It goes into the Ark of the Covenant. They're to preserve this for future generations. So if people were to look at it, they're like, hey, wait, that's mushrooms. Like, no, they didn't say that, right? So clearly it was still something that no other generation knew about, except, of course, I'll be taking you again through the Millennial Kingdom generation. They were very aware of what matzah was or is. And Meshachah said to Aaron, take one basket and give in it a full amar of man as an established sign resting to the face of Yahweh to be kept in custody until the circuit of the ages. As Yahweh had commanded Meshachah, even so Aaron caused it to rest to the face of the presence to be guarded as an observance. And the sons of Yasharel did eat Ath Haman for 40 consummations until they entered into the Arats of resting. They ate Ath Haman until they entered the borders of the land of Canaan, and the Amar is a tenth of the Ayaphaha, chapter 17. This chapter will conclude the reading, and then we'll get into the added commentary tonight. And all the gathered assembly, the sons of Yasharel, moved camp from the wilderness of Sion. They pulled up stakes upon the mouth of Yahweh, the ever-living, and behold, they encamped in Rephidim, or Raphayat da Yam. Now, as I pointed out before, there's more going on with the accounts of the Philistines, why they didn't go that way, because, yes, they could have gone to war with the Philistines, just as they went to war with these creatures from the Black Lagoon right here, or from the underworld, the Freddy Kruegers from your dream. And there was no water for the people to drink, and the people strove against Meshachah and spoke to him, give to us water and we will drink. And Meshachah said to them, to what purpose this contention near me? Why do you attempt to test Yahweh? And there the people thirsted for water. And the people passed the night grumbling against Meshachah. And they said, why did you cause us to go forth from Mitzrayim to slay us and our sons and our cattle with thirst? You know, I really don't like these people. I really don't. This is one of the questions. I mean, you know, Moses being the most humble man alive, I'm sure any question I would ask him, he would fire it back to make me look very proud and unhumble, like for even asking a question. But I just want to know, like why? Like these people sound miserable. I just don't like these people at all. They just see one amazing thing after the next, after the next, after the next, and nothing is good enough for them ever. And Meshachah cried out unto Yahweh, the ever-living, to say, from what will I fashion for this people? Yet again, they are ready to overwhelm me with stones. Which is incredible, right? I mean, they were just given the food of heaven, the food of angels, and that led them to be like, yeah, let's stone this guy. And Yahweh, the ever-living, declared unto Meshachah, pass through to the face of the people and take for yourselves bearded ones of Yasharel, and take in your hand your branch with which you smote the river, and walk. Behold, here I am, and will endear to your face there upon the rock in Horeb, and he will smite upon the rock, and water will go forth from him, that the people may drink. And Meshachah fashioned thus to the eyes of the bearded ones of Yasharel, and he called out the name of the standing place Massa, and Meriyah Baha, or testing and bitter contention, on account of their testing Yahweh, the ever-living, to declare, does Yahweh exist in the midst of the people or not? Ouch. There they are again, like, you know, the doors are for the doors, right? There they are in his presence. He's right there, people. He's right there. And they're almost like atheists here. Like, does he exist with us or not? Like, I see him up there, but I'm not really feeling it right now. I mean, you know, it's almost like the irony, right? Like, they saw the pillar from the light side, but really maybe some of these people should have been standing on Pharaoh's side. And then came Amalek, and he battled against Yasharel with the Rephaim, or the Raphayadam. So Meshachah declared to Yahweh Shai, Choose for us men and go forth to the battle against Amalek. Tomorrow I will make a stand upon the head of the hill with the branch of Elohim in my hand. This is, of course, Joshua here, Yehoshua. So Yahweh Shaya, I'm pronouncing, I butchered that, but just say Yahshua here, all right? Yahshua worked like Meshaha commanded him, and he fought against Amalek. And Meshaha, Aaron, and Heor ascended to the head of the hill, and it existed like this. When Meshaha lifted up his hand, Yahshua prevailed, and when he rested his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Meshaha's hands were heavy. I take it that staff was pretty heavy too. Therefore, they took for themselves a stone and placed it beneath him, and he sat down upon it, and Aaron and Heor, they took hold of his hands, one on this side and one on the other. Thus, his hands existed amawa nuha, or steadfast, until the sun went down. So Yehoshua vanquished Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And Yahweh, the ever-living, commanded Al-Mashaha, Kuthub, write this as a remembrance in a sapphire and recite it in the ear of Yehoshua, for I will wipe away completely the memory of Amalek from beneath Ha-Shamayam. And Meshaha restored the altar, and he called his name Yahweh Nusaya, the ever-living. My standard lifted up, and he declared Yahah with his hand upon the throne, for Yahweh the ever-living will wage war against Amalek, circling age after age. All right. So that concludes the reading of the Torah this week. Good night, everybody. We'll do this again next week. Just kidding. Well, we are done, but that dad joke never gets old. All right. So what are we looking at here? This is the Exodus route, the proposed route. And this one here is there's actually a couple crossings. Now this map here, they show the more southern route, which might be it. I don't really know. I think that if you can see the Nuwebi Beach, I think that is Ron White's crossing over there. I think. I'd have to look again. Could be wrong. But nevertheless, what I want to show you here is if you look up to the north, right along the Mediterranean there, you got Goshen, and then there's that orange path called the Way of Horus. This was the trade route. We see the Way of Horus referenced in other places, I think in Isaiah. This was the way you would obviously go into Canaan. It was a very broad road. They could have quickly gotten there. You could see in the time it took them to get the Red Sea, they could have been just vacationing in Canaan by then. They could have just been encamped in the land. They did not go that way. They went the harder route. He wanted to take them to Sinai, of course. So this is what it reads in the book of Jasher on what happens on the Way of Horus before the Exodus account. At that time, this would be at the time just before Moshe had gone down into Egypt. In the 180th year of the Yashro going down into Mitzrayim, there went forth from Mitzrayim valiant men, 30,000 on foot from the children of Yasharel, who were all of the tribe of Yosef, of the children of Ephraim, the son of Yosef. For they sit, now this is going to be very, very symbolic, I believe, of the Gentile nations being grafted into Israel through Ephraim, which I kind of see us in here. And I think that this is a morality tale that we need to pay attention to and really, really, really trust Yahweh to be our strength, because Ephraim struggled at this. For they said the period was completed, which Yahweh had appointed the children of Yasharel. How many of us have stated that? Like, we're kind of tired of it, right? We're tired of being slaves. End it now. And we have to rely on Yahshua to do it for us. He's got to be the one to roll up his sleeves, all right? Which he had spoken to Abraham. And these men girded themselves, and they put each man his sword at his side, and every man his armor upon him. And they trusted to their strength. That's a naughty no-no right there. And they went out together from Mitzrayim with a mighty hand. It's kind of interesting. You notice here that the Egyptians aren't pursuing them. They literally just got up and walked off the slave plantation. They were slaves. I read in the past that the Levites weren't slaves, but Ephraim was. There's no indication that they weren't. But they're just like, yeah, we're kind of tired of being in the slime pits, making bricks. And they all were discussing it. Hey, what if we just got up and, Monday, let's just not show up to work. We'll meet outside the gates. We'll walk out. Nobody stopped them. But they brought no provision for the road, only silver and gold. But apparently they have Bitcoin. But for all you silver and gold investors out there, right? Because that's the one thing that's going to save you. Just remember this passage right here. They were like, silver and gold's good enough. Because that's going to like trump all, trump all currencies. When we go into Canaan, this is going to be awesome. Not even bread for that day did they bring in their hands. Why? Because they thought of getting their provisions for pay from the Philistines, and if not, they would take it by force. They're like, hey, we got silver and gold. Oh, you don't want our silver and gold? We'll just kill you. And these men were very mighty and valiant men. One man could pursue 1,000, and two could rout 10,000. So they trusted to their strength and went together as they were. And they directed their course toward the land of Gath, and they went down and found the shepherds of Gath feeding the cattle of the children of Gath. And they said to the shepherds, give us some of the sheep for pay that we may eat, for we are hungry, for we have eaten no bread this day. And the shepherds said, are they our sheep or cattle that we should give them to you even for pay? So the children of Ephraim approached to take them by force. And the shepherds of Gath shouted over them that their cry was heard at a distance. So all the children of Gath went out to them. And when the children of Gath saw the evil things of the children of Ephraim, they returned and assembled the men of Gath, and they put on each man his armor and came forth to the children of Ephraim for battle. You have to wonder, too, of course, we know Goliath was from Gath and he had brothers. You have to wonder how many Nephilim-type giants were here in their ranks at that time. And on the second day, the children of Gath sent to all the cities of the Philistines that they should come to their help, saying, come up unto us and help us that we may smite the children of Ephraim, who have come forth from Ephraim to take our cattle and to fight against us without cause. Now the souls of the children of Ephraim were exhausted with hunger and thirst, for they had eaten no bread for 3 days, and 40,000 men went forth from the cities of the Philistine to the assistance of the men of Gath. And those men were engaged in battle with the children of Ephraim, and Yahuwah, this is the tragic part, Yahuwah delivered the children of Ephraim into the hands of the Philistines. Ouch. And they smote all the children of Ephraim, all who had gone forth from Ephraim, every single one of them died. None were remaining but 10 men who had run away from the engagement to, of course, report what happened. That's usually how it happens, right? And they would have, my belief is that they would have actually released those 10 men, right? It's kind of a war strategy because they want people to report of how it's like, we devastated you, don't come back, right? We want you to know what happens when you mess with us. For this evil was from Yahuwah against the children of Ephraim, for they transgressed the word of Yahuwah, the word of Yah, in going forth from Ephraim before the period had arrived, which Yahuwah in the days of old had appointed to Yasharel. Kind of interesting, right? Like these people, they added up the math. It's just like people today. You add up the math and you're like, we're going to be delivered, baby, on these dates. And it never works out that way, does it? Nobody ever figures it out. I have had wise men tell me that if people believe it's going to happen on this date, it will not happen on that date. So, we're coming up on the year 2030. That's the big year, right? And probably 2030 reasons why, Yahshua will return in 2030, right? And I'm telling you guys, it will not work out the way you think it will. It never does. I've been through this so many times. It's tragic. These people all died. They relied on their own strength. All right. Now, the question I'm going to ask you guys is, did the dead of Yashur 75 resurrect? Right? So you had all these, everyone except for 10 people, everyone from the tribe of Ephraim that went out, all died. And this is what it says in Exodus Targum 13:17. It talks about, let's see. All right. And it was when Pharaoh had released the people that Yahuwah did not conduct them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that was the near one. For Yahuwah has said, lest the people be affrighted in seeing their brethren who were killed in war. 200,000 men of the strength of the tribe of Ephraim, who took shields and lances and weapons of war, and went down to Gath to carry off the flocks of the Philistines. And because they transgressed against the statutes of the word of Yahuwah and went forth from Mizraim 3 years before the appointed end of their servitude, they were delivered into the hands of the Philistines. And I kind of wonder here if, well, let me just finish this. Well, no, I'm going to finish my thought first. I wonder if this tribe of Ephraim, if they were successful, they got all the flocks, they got the booties of war, if their plan was to go back and rescue their brethren, or if they were like, see ya, or were they going to go back, right? And this is where Yahuwah really wants to whittle down the ranks. Was it Deuteronomy 20, right? It's Deuteronomy 20, where he wanted to whittle it all the way down to Moses. And then Moses is like, I have a speech impediment. He said, fine. There'll be two of you, you and Aaron, just you two. And, like you two are going to lead these people out. Not how many here. There was, let me look at this number, 200,000 men of strength. Not doing it that way. But this is what it says right here in Exodus Targum. It says, these are the dry bones which the word of Yahuwah restored to life by the ministry or the hand of Ezekiel the prophet. All right. Take that for what it is. Now I'm going to read you a passage from the Talmud in which there is a debate going on between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Judah. Now this is interesting because the Talmud does document. The Talmud has many sources. Many virtues. And here they are documenting that within the rabbinical culture, they are in disagreement over doctrine. And they're actually telling you that they're showing this breakdown where they are eventually leading to a certain point of view that finally wins. And this is what happens. Rabbi Eliezer says, the dead whom Ezekiel resurrected stood on their legs, sang a song of praise, and they died. Well, Rabbi Judah says, in truth, it is a parable, right? He's trying to say, like you're Eliezer, you're taking this too literally. In Ezekiel, that was a parable for something else. And then Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi the Galilean, says, so I don't know actually if these are two different Rabbi Eliezers, because it's kind of weird that they add this longer name afterwards. Maybe it's the same guy. I don't know. But he says, the dead whom Ezekiel resurrected moved to Israel. They got married and had sons and daughters. So he's like doubling down. He's like, no, you're saying it's parable. I'm saying it's so literal that they actually went, they literally, the flesh came on these bones from this battle, and they got married. They had children, and we may be descended from them. I guess not if you're Jewish, right? If you come from Judah, but whatever. You get my idea. This is what it says in Ezekiel 37:11 through 14. I'm not going to read the whole passage for you. But this is what it says. So I prophesied as ordered, and the breath came into them, and they were alive. They stood up on their feet, a huge army. This is talking about the valley of the dry bones, that the flesh comes on them, right? And then they're animated, there's breath. And then he said to me, human being, these bones are the whole house of Israel. And they are saying, our bones have dried up, our hope is gone, and we are completely cut off. Therefore prophesy, say to them that Adonai Elohim says, my people, I will open your graves and make you get up out of your graves, and I will bring you into the land of Yasharel. Then you will know that I am Adonai, when I have opened your graves and made you get up out of your graves, my people. I will put my spirit in you, and you will be alive. Then I will place you into your own land. And you will know that I, Adonai, have spoken and that I have done it, says Adonai. All right. This is one of those situations where, clearly here, Elohim is explaining the parable or the vision and saying, this is what you're seeing is all Israel, which kind of interesting because the rabbi here, Rabbi Eliezer, gets that all Israel's through Ephraim. He gets the theology, right? We are grafted in through Ephraim. All right. So I kind of see this is one of those situations where I see both at work. Kind of like I talked to you guys about the sons of God theory, the sons of Seth theory, how they both they can actually work together side by side. And I could see a situation where this actual valley of dry bones literally happened, but as a sign of what was to come for the resurrection of all of Ephraim. Again, like the resurrection is only happening to the house of Israel, guys, right? Not to the Gentiles, but to the house of Israel. So, but what's crazy about this, if this is true, it means that there was a time in history around the time of Ezekiel, when this happened. Now, why is this so important? Well, remember the prophecy that was given, or the offer that was given to Ezekiel about the temple. We call it the third temple. It would have been the second temple. And this is where I think we lose sight of this. I'm of the opinion that it was an offer that Israel rejected, right? He's like, you guys can come back from captivity. I will offer you this temple. I will build this for you. And they chose their own strength. Even though he delivered them, they still chose their own strength. They did not take that temple. So I am not of the opinion that Ezekiel's temple is something that it could still happen, I guess. I mean, it could, but I don't think he's under an obligation to give them that now. It's like, and so imagine if there was a scenario where these hundreds of thousands of men literally resurrected. I mean, again, it's conjecture, right? We don't have it in the history books, but what if it did happen? What if that was a sign of this miracle that happened that Yahweh wanted to do in Israel, as it says in the Targums, the Aramaic Targum, Exodus, that it did happen, and they still rejected. They're like, yeah, that's amazing, man. You just resurrected all these people. Still don't want the temple. We still don't trust you. We still want our own strength. You see what I'm saying? This shows the depravity of humanity. This is what it says in the Isaiah 26:19. Your dead will live, my corpses will rise. Awake and sing, you who dwell in the dust, for your dew is like the morning dew, and the earth will bring the ghost to life. That's the complete Jewish Bible. This is, of course, talking about the resurrection of Israel. Daniel 12:1-3 is actually very enticing. It says, many of those sleeping in the dust of the earth will awaken. Notice here, many. And this isn't just talking about the righteous, all right? So people think of the many, and they're like, I've looked at many different translations. They all say many, but not all. So many will awaken, some of the many to everlasting life, and some of the many to everlasting shame and abhorrence. So, and then, of course, but those who can discern will shine like the brightness of heaven's dome, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. So I am of the opinion that not everybody resurrects from the dead. And I do have a complementary passage from Enoch. This is Enoch chapter 22, when Enoch goes into Sheol. And we read at the very end, of course, I don't have time to go through all the different places within Sheol where the sinner, the wicked, and the righteous are situated. However, there is a classification difference for the wicked and the sinner. According to Enoch, the wicked are resurrected and the righteous are resurrected, but the sinners are not. And this, again, goes very much against Protestant thinking. The good news is that I'm not a Protestant, so I can think outside that box. And it seems to me that when I think of a sinner, I've challenged this for years. People haven't really come back at me strong about this. I could be completely wrong about this, but my understanding of a sinner is somebody who just, paid their taxes, lived life, weren't really interested in righteousness or the things of Yah. They weren't a bad person. They didn't murder. They didn't, they didn't do bad things. They weren't, ruling wickedly over people. They just lived and they died. That's kind of it. And this is what it says. And this has been made for this section of Sheol has been made for the spirits of men who shall not be righteous, but sinners, who are godless, and of the lawless they shall be companions. But the spirits shall not be punished. So these are the spirits of the sinners, all right? They shall not be punished in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from the dead. That's what it says. It's instead of stoning me, how about you just, throw Enoch into the book burning if you don't like how that fits into your theology. But that's what he says, that there will be, it seems to tie in with Daniel right there. Here's what it says in pseudo Ezekiel. Now, if you don't know what pseudo Ezekiel is, it was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There were actually 3 copies found of it. And you could see like 4Q, whatever, 4Q. Those are the numbers. This is what it says. And I said, "O Yahuwah, I have seen many men from Israel who have loved your name and have walked in the ways of your heart. And these things, when they will come to be, and how will they be recompensed for their piety?" And Yahuwah said to me, "I will make it manifest to the children of Israel, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah." And he said, "Son of man, prophesy over the bones, and speak, and let them be joined, bone to its bone, and joint to its joint." And it was so. And he said a second time, "Prophesy, and let arteries come upon them, and let skin cover them from above." And it was so. And he said, "Prophesy again over the 4 winds of heaven, and let them blow breath into the slain." And it was so. And a large crowd of people came to life and blessed Yahuwah Sebaoth, who had given them life. And I said, "O Yahuwah, when shall these things come to be?" And Yahuwah said to me, "Until after days, a tree shall bend and shall stand erect." That was really not helpful at all. I read that to you out of curiosity, being a Dead Sea Scroll, but if somebody can answer that riddle to me, until after days, a tree shall bend and shall stand erect. That's apparently when this event is supposed to happen. Let's talk about the second Passover, which I am now calling this section of the talk tonight, second Exodus, the better Exodus. You've heard me talk in the past, the new covenant, the better covenant. Well, the same thing is with Passover. There are 2 Passovers, and the second is the better. And I could see that based on the new covenant being the better covenant, whether you want to call it renewed or new, it's like tomato me. I really, it doesn't bother me the slightest, because I have made the case that every single covenant ever put forward by Yahuwah to his people has always been predicated on the last. They're not separate. They're not like choose this one. Oh, you want to be a Genesis covenant, you want to be a Noahide covenant, or you want to be an Abraham covenant, or what is, or a David covenant. It's like, no. They're all predicated on the last. It starts with Genesis chapter 3, the promise of, crushing the head of the serpent, and going all the way forward, and it starts expanding. It goes to Sinai, it expands, and then it goes to King David and promising the Messiah coming through David, which is predicated, of course, on the Torah. And then it goes all the way to the king arriving and, offering the new covenants based on all the last covenants to come. So anyways, second Passover, the better Passover. And this is, of course, going out to those of you who are new to this, and you're maybe thinking it's very kind of scary because it's anthropological, and your family's like, "Oh no, don't become a Judaizer," or all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, no, okay, let me start here. Jeremiah 23:7. "Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when they shall no longer say, as Yahuwah lives, who brought up the people of Yasharel out of the land of Egypt, but as Yahuwah lives, who brought up and led the offspring of the house of Yasharel out of the north country and out of all the countries where he had driven them, then they shall dwell in their own land." So according to this, Jeremiah is saying that there will come a time in history that there will be a Exodus event that will be so grand and so just awe-inspiring that the people who live through that will no longer think, oh, like that passing through the Red Sea, that was amazing, dude. No, it's like that is dwarfed in comparison to what we went through. Now, I already gave you away right here, showing the harrowing of hell. I could be totally wrong about this. Maybe I am, but I think everybody think. What happened? When was Yahshua crucified? He was crucified at Passover. Was he the Passover lamb? Was he the atoning sacrifice, right? He goes down into Sheol. He rescues the people in Sheol, and he takes them up to paradise. Now I ask you, if you have been in the darkness of Sheol with naked, with unclean, evil spirits, with the Rephaim, and you're down there with him for thousands of years. And then Yahshua shows up, the same, Yahweh from the cloud. And you were in that wilderness generation. You were one of those people, you passed through the Red Sea, right? You experienced that. And now you're being saved. There is nothing you can do to save yourself from Sheol. You are there forever, right? Just like you can't circumcise your own heart, just like you can't give yourself the Holy Spirit. You cannot rescue yourself from Sheol. He comes and breaks down the gates. He rips open the jaws of Leviathan. He goes in there. He rescues people. He's like, hey, who's with me? Let's go up to paradise, right? I think that if you were to go through that experience, be like, yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. On like a scale of like the 5 greatest events in human history, I would have to place this as number 1. The first Passover can go number 2. And then you look at the last 2,000 years of history, and I get it. Like, we are all discovering our quote unquote Hebrew roots. We're going back to the Torah, as we should. But you look at the last 2,000 years of human history, and what is the event that they remember? Apparently the thing that was pagan, right? That we're not supposed to celebrate. I think we have it all twisted and backwards. It's Yahshua on the cross and his crucifixion, resurrection. That is the greatest event in history. That trumps it all. And people will argue, well, they're not in the land yet. Well, I could be wrong about that. Maybe we really are going to go into physical Israel today. As somebody put forward, some of my friends put forward, but I believe that this is talking about the true land that, the true city, the true land that Abraham was looking for, and that is the blessed land, paradise, or terrestrial paradise on this earth they were taken to. We see this right here in Gospel Nicodemus 19, chapter 19 and chapter 20. It says, then the Lord, aka Yahweh, then Yahweh. Keep in mind, this was originally Hebrew, and we're getting the Lord here. Then Yahweh, stretching forth his hand, he is in Sheol, made the sign of the cross, the Tav, upon Adam and upon all his saints. And taking hold of Adam by his right hand, he ascended from Sheol, and all the saints of all him followed him. Then Yahweh, holding Adam by the hand, delivered him to Michael the archangel, and he led them into paradise filled with mercy and glory. That is incredible. That just blows away the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds passage. For lack of time, I'm not going to go through some of these here. You guys have seen this 100 times, but this is, I love the moon map. And of course, the moon map is just kind of like a small portion of our realm. When you go up into like Mars and some of the other planets, you see that the map expands radically, as I said earlier tonight. But there you have what, the Vibes of the Cosmos is one has really pushed this. It's done some amazing research, but it calls Terra Vista over there. That would be the land of darkness where the sun and the moon are not. And this is where I'm proposing is the terrestrial paradise, as we have so many books, guys, so many out there that talk about this reality. And for me, this is like Flat Earth 2.0. And the only reason I think that hasn't taken off in the Flat Earth community is because they don't want it to be so. They're really big on like the Buddhist maps and things like that. And, these other lands out there that you can go to. But this idea of a land that only the righteous can go to, like, that's not it's amazing. That for me, that's like the most amazing thing ever, but it hasn't taken off. It's not attractive. It is not an attractive view for most people. And maybe it's a subconscious thing, but I just think that people don't hunger and thirst for righteousness. Ezekiel says this: as I live, declares Yahweh Elohim, surely with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out, I will be king over you. So again, it's like, wait a second. I thought Yahshua was King of Kings and Lord of Lords here, right? We got have Yahweh and Yahshua ever been in the same room at the same time? Wink, wink, if you get my drift. It seems like one leaves a room and the other comes back in. Kind of convenient. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples. That's, there's another reference to what I call the hidden wilderness, the divine wilderness. And there I will enter into judgment with you face to face, as I entered into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So there's a reference right there to the first Exodus. So I will enter into judgment with you, declares Yahuwah Elohim. I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will purge out the rebels from among you and those who transgress against me. I will bring them out of the land where they sojourn, but they shall not enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. Ezekiel 20. One of the things that I think the themes that I really want to play into tonight is the fact that we always in our mind have an idea of how God or Elohim is going to work in our lives, and it doesn't work out that way. We have an idea that, like, I can handle it. I would like it if it went this way. We like, use me and I'll be your servant, but please do it this way, right? The way I want it to happen. And it doesn't work out that way. And I'm not mocking anybody. Please don't think I'm doing that. But I see a lot with the second Exodus research. I've seen people suggest, oh, there's going to be like the Atlantic Ocean is going to part, and we're going to like walk all the way across to Israel, and only the righteous will go and all the other people won't. And I'm like, see, all you're doing is you're borrowing from the first Exodus. Like, no, he's not. I don't think he's going to do it that way again, because you're expecting it that way. You're expecting that he's going to part the waters just like he did for them, and you're going to know to look for it. But it's never the way we think it's going to go. That's the amazing thing about eschatology. Okay, so here we see a passage from Second Ezra talking about how everybody on earth is going to die and just Israel is going to be resurrected. I actually, with the lack of time I have, I'm going to cut some of this. Unfortunately, I'm just going to whiz through this. Look at all this great stuff. Oh, I just can't read it tonight. Let's talk about Paul. Dun, dun, dun. First and second baptism, trigger warning. We're going into Paul. And what is up with his chronic headaches? I mean, look at this. I mean, the guy, maybe Carly from Ancient Paths can, if only he could talk to her, maybe she could figure out what's going on with him, how he could heal this headache he has. What is the root symptom, Paul? But what is up with that sword over there? Have you ever, like, that is a massive sword. What is that, Goliath sword? He got like a whole, I mean, I don't even think he could pick that thing up. It's bigger than he is. It's huge. Well, anyways, this is what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. For brothers, I don't want you to miss the significance of what happened to our fathers. Yes, please don't tell us, Paul. We do not want to miss the significance of what we just read in Exodus. All of them were guided by the pillar of cloud, and they all passed through the sea. And in connection with the cloud and with the sea, they all immersed themselves into Moshe. So he's tying it in there. That was their baptism from death into life on the other side. And it's, of course, interesting that, clearly, as far as I'm concerned, this goes against the once saved, always saved, because if these people who were immersed in the ocean were once saved, always saved, then they all should have entered the land, shouldn't they? But most of that generation was wicked and they were cut off. So it really is endurance until the end. Also, they all ate the same food from the Spirit, and they all drank the same drink from the Spirit, for they drank from a Spirit-sent rock which followed them, which is another amazing passage. We haven't gotten there yet to the rock that followed them. And the rock was the Messiah. All right, well, let's look at Romans. He says this, Romans chapter 6. I really wanted just to show you there that he's tying in a repeated baptism event from the Torah to Mashiach that we see here in Romans. So then are we to say, let's keep on sinning so that there can be more grace? Heaven forbid. How can we who have died to sin still live in it? Apparently, a lot of Christians haven't gotten that memo. It's like, yeah, guys, if you claim to be covered in grace, and what are you doing sinning? And sinning is a transgression of the Torah. Don't you know that those of us who have been immersed into the Messiah, Yahshua, have been immersed into his death? Through immersion into his death, we were buried with him, so that just as through the glory of the Father, the Messiah was raised from the dead, likewise we too may live a new life, not apart from the Torah, but through the Torah. We are now living through Messiah, who is the Word of Yah incarnate. For if we have been united with him in a death like this, we will also be united with him in a resurrection like his. We know that our old self was put to death, not like who here was keeping the Torah before they were saved? Come on, like let's read this for what it is. You were a sinner. You were lost in your sins. You were not keeping the Torah. You were not a righteous person. That old self is dead, not the Torah. So you are now coming into the Torah. You're coming into the Word of Yah. We know that our old self was put to death on the execution stake with him, so that the entire body of our sinful propensities might be destroyed. So you're not sinning anymore, right? Right? And we might no longer be enslaved to sin. For some who like, oh man, so frustrating reading Paul and going like, man, this guy like totally gets it. And like people read him and they just totally, it's like literally, guys, it's like those like people in the wilderness, they just looked right up at the cloud. He's right there peeking through at them. Isn't that, you guys ever do that? Like you look up at clouds. I do this all the time. And since I was a child, I would imagine angels up in the clouds. And when I was a child, I used to look for the angels up there. I used to think that that's where they walked up and down and sat and stuff. They probably do. And of course, that's what Yahuwah does. And yet they still didn't get it. It's so frustrating. I'm going to be frustrated for the rest of the Torah portions. I'm sorry, as I deal with these very unlikable people. For someone who has died has been cleared from sin. You are now dead to your sinful self. You are now alive through the Torah. Now, since we died with the Messiah, we trust that we will also live with him. Walk as he walked, do as he do, say as he said. We know that the Messiah has been raised from the dead, never to die again. Death has no authority over him, for his death was a unique event that need not be repeated. But his life, he keeps on living for Allah Hayam. He keeps on living just as he was living before, right? He hasn't changed his life. He's not doing something different. He's the same Messiah, the same guy who we got to know in the Gospels. He wasn't just living that for the Jews. And oh, good, I'm not living for the Jews anymore. I'm going to change the kind of things I do. In the same way as the Messiah that we got to know in the Gospels, consider yourselves to be dead to sin, but alive for Allah Hayam by your union with Messiah Yahshua, Romans 6. All right. Got Paul out of my system. We'll move on now with the time we have left. The two mountains, Baal, Zephon, and Sinai. So there you can see right there, according to the proposed path, which this is the Ron Myatt path. I think it's spot on. You could see where they were actually, I'll show you aerial views, but they were going through this very narrow canyon. They were walking through. This would have taken them a little bit of time with all their wagons and their possessions and stuff. And they come out on this beach. It's actually a very large beach that would have fit Israel. And you could see Mount Sinai right over here, right? You could see it. That's pretty awesome. And the point is that, okay, so this is Dathan and Abiram, they were men of Judah. They stayed behind. They're actually the villains. And I think Dathan, he's the villain in the Cecil B. DeMille 10 Commandments film from 1956 with Charlton Heston. He was portrayed in there pretty well. And so they're actually staying behind. They didn't want to go with the Hebrews. This is how wicked they are. And they're counseling now Pharaoh, and they're like, hey, by the way, all of Egypt was destroyed, but this idol Zephon over here is still standing up. And Yahuwah did that on purpose. He left this one God because he's like, I haven't judged this God yet. Isn't it interesting that the gods who were judged, those idols did fall? But Zephon Baal Zephon has not been judged yet. It says this in Legends of the Jews 3. When he reached the sanctuary of Baal Zephon, Pharaoh in his joy at finding him spared while all the other idols in Egypt had been annihilated. So it looks like the temple of Baal Zephon is still standing. It lost no time, but hastened to offer sacrifices to him, and he was comforted. For, he said, Baal Zephon approves my purpose of drowning the children of Israel in the sea. So from the Saudi Arabian side, you can look across right there, and there is Baal Zephon. So it is interesting. It's like kind of like the two towers or the two mountains. this is a standoff now between Mount Sinai and Baal Zephon, between the two gods. So this is I showed you earlier the map further down. This is the Ron White suggested route. They didn't go all the way down here. They went across this way, and then they went through this very, very narrow canyon to this beach. And here's a better shot of it here. You can see how they're going east, west, north, south. I mean, they're really winding around on this thing. If the sun is blocked by the mountains, canyons above you, you can get very disoriented in here, I would imagine. And this would be a death sentence. I mean, if Pharaoh was able to get his soldiers up on these mountains, which I don't think he can maneuver fast enough to do it, like he could just pellet them with arrows and other things. He could just demolish them. But anyways, here they are coming on this beach. You see the crossing route here. Now, according to Jasher and the Targums, it wasn't just one crossing, it was actually 12 crossings, which you could see that here. I could see with here that you could spread out and have each of the tribes have their own kind of alleyway across the water. Here's another one. You would have Sinai over here, Baal Zephon's over here somewhere, and they're crossing through there. There's the beach. I would love to go to this beach someday. That's on my to-do list. And of course, here are some of the discoveries they made at this actual crossing site. Some of the wheels they actually have found. I need to get a picture of them. The pillars that were erected there by the Hebrews, by Israel, to commemorate. They think maybe even back in like King Solomon's time, to commemorate the crossing route. So they actually have those as well. This is just talking about the Baal Zephon, the god. Anyways, skipping him, but you can see that he's the god of weather, hurricanes, storms, thunder, rain, typical Baal, right? Which is again astonishing that the idol is still standing in Egypt. That's not the astonishing part. I assume that it was toppled over probably at the time that at the mountain of Baal Zephon that Yah judges Baal and he drowns Egypt. And what is one of the first things they do at Mount Sinai, we'll get there either next week or in a couple of weeks, they worship Baal. Just unbelievable, like unbelievable that this generation did this. There's a picture of Baal Zephon right there, discovered in the sands of time. Here's where it says in Yasher that the waters of the sea were divided into 12 parts. Kind of skipping through this just for lack of time. Here's what it says in the Targum. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea with the great and glorious rod, which was created at the beginning, and on which were engraven and set forth the great and glorious name and the 10 signs which had smitten misery. Kind of a little awkward that the 12 plagues were on his stick. And the 3 fathers of the world and the 6 mothers. The 3 mothers and the 6 mothers is talking, of course, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob and their wives. So Israel has 4 mommies, but technically 6. And the 12 tribes of Jacob, and straightway Yahweh brought a vehement east wind upon the sea all night and made the sea dry and divided the waters into 12 divisions according to the 12 sons of Jacob. All right, so let's talk about, I've been through this so much that I don't need to spend a lot of time on this tonight, but you guys know I love talking about manna and the poop problem. This is something this last year when I was going through Europe, I paid a lot of attention to, and I was always asking, can you point me in the direction of the bathroom? I got some very interesting responses in this, but you're looking here, of course, at a Roman bathroom, and they loved bathrooms. They had toilets aplenty, and you could see there, I don't know if they had room for dividers there. Maybe they had dividers. I think just dudes just sat down and they just continued with business in there, you know. This one over here is this is like one of the oldest bathrooms or toilets built by Queen Elizabeth I's godson. Queen Elizabeth, of course, was the House of Tudors. Sir John Harrington, and then, of course, you guys all heard about Thomas Crapper in the 1800s. So you go from Roman times with bathrooms. There are no bathrooms to the Middle Ages, and then they do not reemerge again in any kind of shape or form until the 1500s, which is very interesting. Now, of course, you can look there in Sir John Harrington's model that they did have a pot that they would lift and they would change that. And so the idea is, of course, that they just had pots, that they thought about building these huge, beautiful, grand cathedrals, put all hundreds and hundreds of years into these grand designs, and they really didn't care about plumbing. They didn't care about the comforts of pooping. We spend a lot of our time in the day. They say, I looked this up the other day. They say we spend 20 minutes a day in the bathroom. I'm like, are you serious? Like 20 minutes? I spend more than 20 minutes a day in the bathroom, dude. And I like comfort of a toilet. The thought of having to sit over a pot and then change the pot, I just, if I'm going to have plumbing or no plumbing, I'm going with plumbing, right? So this is a garderobe here. Now, this is something I paid attention to all through Europe. They would tell you that there would be this little tiny extension on the walls of the castles. There might be one of them in a whole castle, which might hold hundreds of people, mind you. Hundreds of people. Now, for those of you in a household with 5 people, and I'm talking about a house with ladies too. I have a household of 5 people. My wife and I have 3 children, and we have 2 bathrooms. And sometimes both of those bathrooms amongst 5 people are occupied, and you got someone who really has to go. So imagine having a castle full of people with hundreds of people in it, and they've got one garderobe. And apparently you just tinkle down that, you just drop the poop down the chute and the pee, and it goes down. It's known as the Golden Tower or the Siege House or the Gong. I like the Golden Tower, but it just goes straight down by the gate. Sometimes it's like right there into the moat. And so they don't ever change the moat out. It's just this stinky, pooey, sludge. It's disgusting. Imagine the flies. I mean, like, who would want to live like this? Certainly, like, not the military. Come on, you want to keep the military. If these castles were military, you want to keep it sanitary. You want to keep them safe. You don't want them dying from disease, right? As you guys know, this makes no sense. By some accounts, we have the wilderness generation that there was a total of something like 12 miles from end to end. So if you were, at the tabernacle in the middle, you got 6 miles to walk to get to the end. And if they were to remove their poop from the outside, that's a long ways to walk every single time you poop. Every time. I mean, I don't know how long you can hold it in a bag and collect it. It's like it's supposed to be outside the camp, right? You're spending all day carrying it in and out. That doesn't make any sense. Well, we know that in Revelation, it talks about Revelation 2. It says that to him who overcomes, I will give to eat of the hidden manna. We know that there's manna in heaven. It's intended for the saints. I'm not going to read this from Legends of the Jews. Just go over it. They say that the manna, the amazing thing about the manna was that, number one, it was created, it was ground up by the angels. We know that it's the food of angels. That it would be in the future world to come. That's a sign for always the millennial kingdom, that this manna could taste like whatever you wanted to taste like. And also that if you were not a sinner, if you were righteous, you would not poop, that it would just kind of sink into your body, so to speak. Well, we see the same things in the Ascensa Yaakov, which I love when we have that sort of connection with Christian texts. It says this: manna was also given to them from heaven for bread, and which kind of food was turned into whatever taste anyone desired. So I give the example here, of course, of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. If you know, she turns Violet Beauregard turns into a blueberry, but she was chewing on that gum, which was like, I think it was like a pot roast with potatoes, and it had pie. It might have been apple pie afterwards. And right, which would be amazing, right? Like if you could have manna and have it taste like whatever you wanted. Now it does say in the Exodus account that it was like honey, but it is interesting in this ancient text, which you have this in a Christian text, you have it in Jewish text. They both say that it tasted like whatever you wanted it to. All right, so this is what I discovered at the Tower of London. I did find some garderobes, and at the Tower of London, this is it. You're looking at it right here. Now, I was telling myself, because I do think it was a prison. I do believe it was, and I think that in the Millennial Kingdom you would have had prisons for evildoers. I do think you would have. I do think that these castles were fortifications. I know not everyone thinks that way. I looked at a lot of castles. I'm like, it's hard to look at this and not see a fortification. It looks very military to me, very kind of like it's not there for its beauty like cathedrals. It contrasted. It's there for practicality purposes. But here's what they tell you so I'm thinking, okay, like if anybody needs a golden tower, it's sinners in prison, right? Because if you eat the manna, you poop and pee, right? The thing is they tell you that this was also the people in the Middle Ages kept this as a closet. Your bathroom was also your closet where you kept your clothes, your family jewels, your gold, all that kind of stuff, like your literal clothes. They tell you that they believed that the fecal matter kept the moths away. And honestly, I mean, if I have to deal between moths and poop, I'm going to take the moths every single time. No, I do not want to walk around. They make them look like a bunch of just like barbarian idiots that they actually like, yeah, just rub me in your fecal matter and your poop. And let's, like, no, sorry. Like that's ridiculous. So, personally, I think that they were closets. They admit they were closets. They admit they were storage units, but apparently everyone went to pee there. Like when you need to keep the queen's crown, just put it in the right there by the toilet. It was kind of funny, but not so funny. I won't tell you who, but I went to the bathroom the other day and the phone rang. I had the phone with me and I didn't answer it, but I said, "Hey, I'll have to get back to you. I'm in the bathroom right now." And this person responded like, "How is that sanitary? Why would you take your phone into the bathroom?" But it applies. I was like, yeah, well, that applies to my investigation, right? I've taken you guys here through these great palaces that actually have. Actually, let me skip ahead. I want to show you. I'll get there. So one of the one things that I loved this last year, every single time, I really wasn't into the Renaissance stuff. I kind of got bored in some of the, the Tartarian stuff. It just direct me in the direction of the Middle Ages, early or late. And I was like in the kingdom of heaven looking at this stuff. I could look at reliquaries all day. I found them so fascinating. I saw dozens and dozens. They were the most beautiful things, handcrafted, just a very, very nice artwork. And again, they tell you, well, they built these to put like finger bones and just stupid stuff like that. But when you're actually looking at these, they look like most of them look like they were designed for something very differently. Like they're just so impractical. They built these just to put little chips of bones and stuff in there, like they fill it in at a later time. And one of the saints of, now you can see here where I'm going with this, with the, the reliquaries as little versions of some of these other towers and the hexagonal or octagonal or whatever, the 5, 6, 7 shaped buildings we see, the baptismals and stuff like that. But one of the things that struck my attention some time ago was when you look at this painting here, which I love, the Master of St. Veronica did this in 1395 to 1425. You see all these women, they are the 144,000. They're sitting there, of course, with Mary, the Madonna and the child. And each one of these has a different MacGuffin. And a MacGuffin, of course, it's an artifact that tells kind of a parable. It's a way that they instruct humanity through this item. It's a storytelling device that let me tell you how to live your life according to this. And we see in there like Margaret right here. I think she's the one in green. She's the female contemporary to St. George. She was also a dragon slayer. She was pretty badass, actually. I actually think that she was Tabitha. That's a different discussion. Tabitha from the Apocalypse of Elijah, the one that the Antichrist actually killed her and she rose from the dead. That's what happened to Margaret. She was actually swallowed by a dragon and she overcame the dragon and came out. But St. Clare of Assisi, her MacGuffin is the reliquary, interestingly enough. In all the depictions we see of St. Clair, it looks like a white wafer in there, communion wafer, perhaps. I have suggested, I could be very wrong about this, but I have suggested that the communion wafers that we see with the Catholic Church and Orthodoxy comes from the manna from heaven tradition. And we see time again that she is, what's important with St. Clair and why she would be carrying around a reliquary. I mean, why is she carrying something around that they put finger bones in? They cannot explain this, and I've asked. She took up the vow of poverty. She is the female contemporary, the female counterpart to Saint Francis of Assisi. Come from the same town. Both took a vow of poverty, meaning she just relied exclusively on Yahshua to provide her every need, everything. She won't take a loaf of bread with her, anything. She is provided for, and she just fully trusts in him. And yet she's carrying around this reliquary. And then we keep seeing this white wafer appear in it. When we see these other from Illuminations, we see a lot of these reliquaries that you'll never see this in a museum today. It's just interesting that I'm finding a lot of these, that the people of the Middle Ages, they made this connection with the wafers, which, could be the body of Christ, but there could be a connection where he is the unleavened bread, right? This is my flesh, eat my flesh. This is where this tradition came from. Here's more. Of course, we see a lot of these where there would actually be angels on each side of the reliquary, just like the Ark of the Covenant and the cherubim. And here's one where you actually see them mimicking the Ark of the Covenant right here. Here's one where I don't know why there's a naked boy out there, but they're out there. Now, obviously it's a telling of the wilderness generation. I'm not that gullible, but I always find it interesting when they do it in contemporary clothing. It looks like Robin Hood there collecting manna. And here is a really fascinating one in the church in Jerusalem, the Temple of Solomon, which I agree with the Fig Tree generation. They were the ones to put out the theory that this was an actual temple of the Millennial Kingdom. And I am in agreement with this. I think this was an actual working temple. And here you see two people being fed from the manna in the reliquary. All right, now moving on to Santiago. Santiago was a breathtaking medieval community. Just you walk down the streets, and these are all my pictures. No, these are not my pictures. I took pictures. I'll show you them to you. I know, because I did not go into this place right here. This place was unfortunately closed. I really wanted to go into this courtyard with this baptismal. It has this grand dome. It has like all these just amazing features. Now, the one thing that I could never figure out is why Santiago is considered one of the three greatest pilgrimage sites in the world. The other two are Rome and Jerusalem. I've now been to the three greatest pilgrimage sites in the world. Rome I get, Jerusalem I get. I do not get why Santiago was such a great pilgrimage site. Now, the story goes that, of course, James the Lesser was, he died there. He was buried. They discovered his bones. And so this is James. You will often find him throughout Europe depicted with a seashell. If the seashell is pointing down, it is a symbol that you have been to Santiago. It's also a symbol of the resurrection. Now, when I went there, we started our trip. We went to Portugal first and then to Spain. And I had luckily for Santiago, I did have a tour guide. We mostly did this stuff on our own, but it was really interesting because I got to ask her a lot of questions. And I started asking her about why Santiago is one of the three greatest sites. She couldn't answer that question. She had never been asked that question before. She's like, well, you can fly to, I think she actually said you could fly to Jerusalem and Rome. And I'm like, well, No, you can't. We're talking about middle. You cannot fly there. And by the way, you still can't fly to Jerusalem. You have to fly to Tel Aviv, and you have to take a bus in, right? Like you don't fly to Jerusalem to this day. She couldn't answer it, which is amazing that she spends every day of her life for the last 20 years there, and she did not know. Then I asked her about the seashell, and she's like, "Well, they have really neat, unique seashells here, and they go down and collect them." Like, really? Really, the seashell became the symbol of resurrection because there's neat by the way, which are a bit of a walk from Santiago. There's seashells all over the world that are very unique in different places, and they just can't answer these questions. And then of course this is where we see like Shell gas station right here, right? You guys, it comes from Santiago. When you guys see the shell, think of Santiago, and it's a symbol for resurrection. And then, of course, we see here the birth of Venus coming out of the seashell, right? Resurrection. You see this with the pilgrimage. The seashell was the bumper sticker of the Middle Ages. If anyone has seen the Wall drugstore bumper sticker, right? That's in South Dakota, Wall drugstore. It's the same thing. And here was one of the examples when I was in Portugal that I saw the Green Man. It was the first, guys, like the boat drops us off in Europe. First cathedral I walk in, I go and I said, I bet you the Green Man's going to be in here. I go in there and there he is up on the ceiling, and it was so dark in there and he was so high up. I couldn't even see. I could tell it was a Green Man. I had to go back to my room and look. I'm like, oh my goodness, the seashell's coming out of his mouth. Not here to talk to you about the Green Man tonight, but here's some of my photos of Santiago, and you can, of course, see that anytime you see the saint with the palm branches, these are identifying the that scene in Second Esdras where Joshua gives the 144,000 the palm branches, and these are basically given to women almost exclusively. But oh yeah, so there you can see this medieval fountain right here with the horses. This goes back to the Middle Ages. They had fountains with water. They had plumbing for the water in the fountains. And I asked the question, where are the bathrooms? Now I need to point out that I'll just stay here for a minute. I need to point out that Santiago is an entire city. Okay, it's not just a cathedral. An entire Gothic city. It is so beautiful to walk through. Not a single bathroom. And I asked the guide, I'm like, okay, so there's the third biggest tourist pilgrimage site in the world. She said, yes. So thousands upon thousands of people are coming there. With that, there are hostels, hotels, hospitals, all sorts of stuff. I'm like, no bathroom. She's like, no. I said, well, where did they go to the bathroom? She's like, just that field over there. I said, that field over there. Can you guys imagine in the middle of the night going to a stinky, poopy field? Like, and yet there's a fountain right there with horses with water pouring out of their mouths, right? Unbelievable. And then, of course, there is me with my very happy daughter. We had a very happy, this was a Sabbath. It was a lot of fun. And my two sons didn't want to go, so they missed out on this. But I got to go with my wife and my daughter. And there's my beautiful Rivka enjoying our poop-free day in Santiago. Here is the rock that was split in just outside of Sinai. You can still go there to this day. I am kicking myself because I came so close. It wouldn't have worked out anyways, but the individual who will be hosting Sukkot this year has been to the actual Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia multiple times. He will tell you, I mean, for anyone who says that it's not the real Mount Sinai, he'd be like, okay, you need to go there and prove me wrong, because all indications is that this is real Mount Sinai. And I would love to go up to that rock. That right there, it's like on this hill where you could see the water where it would have gushed out. It would have formed this lake all around it. Like, you could just imagine that with all Israel standing around, just go up to this lake, and they could have swam in it and drank it and all sorts of stuff. I'm going to close on this tonight where we have run out of time. I enjoyed talking with you guys tonight. This is the actual hieroglyphics that you can still find out there, and I hope it remains. I hope that the Saudi Arabian government does not destroy it. Somebody did go out there and totally destroyed the menorah pictograph, or whatever you want to call it, on the rocks, which is really sad. Why they would do that? You actually have from the actual wilderness generation went out there and put the menorah on the rocks, and it's of course the 7 branch. This here is the depiction of the Rephaim coming to fight them. You can see the little people are Israel. You can see how huge these people are. I mean, just judging by, it's a very rude drawing, but judging by the size, the normal humans do not go up to their waistlines, their private parts. I mean, they're like, their legs are longer than their bodies. These guys are huge. Again, it's a very crude drawing. I don't want to draw too much out of this, draw too much out of it. But those look like serpentine heads to me. They look like snake people. Again, but those are really long necks, very, very long necks. They also look like kites. Like they look like human sails, like they just blew there in the wind. But, again, whoever drew this was, lacking. Amazing that they could put together such a beautiful tabernacle, right? And whoever did this. But the interesting thing about these Rephaim, I'm not going to go through all these notes here, but there is a lot of indication that these were spirit creatures, that they could have come from Sheol itself. Now, I want you to think about this, because if Yahuwah had just destroyed all the idols of Egypt and he had just judged all the gods, I could see a scenario where the very, gatekeepers of Sheol are coming up. Like these are like demonic, these are some bad dudes coming up, and they're desperate now, right? And they're coming out to wipe out Israel. And Yahuwah is like, nope. And he just destroys them all. So that could be, or they could just be a kind of a supernatural tribe of giants that lived in the rock areas over there. I actually think that the supernatural explanation makes a lot more sense to me. It really does, than just these serpentine or whatever snake-like giant people that lived over there that were just minding their own business. They didn't bother any of the surrounding nations, but Israel's coming through and, they have to attack them. I see it different. So we're going to end it there tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Sorry that some of that at the end there, had to be rushed through so much. Oh, I was going to say about the garderobe that I did when I went into Anne Boleyn's house. Now, keep in mind, she's Tudor. She's King Henry the. Remember Dylan McVaney, the guy, the Bud Light guy, who is he's a tranny, and there was the whole Bud Light a couple years ago fiasco. Well, apparently he has been cast in a play as Anne Boleyn. And I have to ask the question, hasn't Anne Boleyn been through enough already? She lost her head. And I was about to give another joke, but that would be inappropriate for this. But nevertheless, I went to Anne Boleyn's house. So keep in mind, this is, according to my timeline, this is now post MK. And, they pointed out where her garderobe was, her bathroom. Was it also her closet? Maybe, I don't know. But I do think at some point they had to have bathrooms again. All right. So on that, we're going to close tonight. Good night, everybody. Let's do this again next week. I enjoyed this discussion. Hope you did too. And you will once again see the message from our own Ancient Paths. Good night.
Shalom, friends. This is Carly with Ancient Paths. I woke up this morning with Pamela and Rebecca heavy on my heart, just thinking about the mission to help fund the paleo translation, but not only that, to help these widows make their living, to be able to pay their bills, to be able to eat. And I just got to thinking that, the Unexpected Cosmology has 20,000 subscribers. Now, that number should probably be more because of shadow banning and all that. But if every single subscriber to the Unexpected Cosmology donated $1, just $1, imagine what that could do for these two women and for this ministry in general. So I'm putting this out there. This is a challenge to see if we can get every single person who subscribes to this channel to donate at least $1. If you feel led to donate more, 5, 10, 15, 20, more than that, awesome. But just think about what we could do, the impact that could make. And guys, I know that the economy stinks right now, that finances are tight. Like I'm feeling that in my family and my business as well. But $1, we can all spare $1. We can all spare $5 probably. Just, give up your coffee through the drive-thru or whatever. But yeah, that was on my heart this morning, and I wanted to share that. So I'm putting that challenge out there to this community, to the Unexpected Cosmology subscribers, and to those who are more involved in the community. Let's rally around these women. Let's help support them. Let's help them pay their bills and help them bring this paleo translation to its fullness, because that's what we really want to see. So hope this message blesses you. Their PayPals are going to be in the comments below, so you can PayPal them directly, or you can just donate to the Unexpected Cosmology and put a note that it's for the Widows Fund for the paleo translation, and Noel will get that to them. So let's make it happen, guys. We can do it. We can raise $20,000 if everybody donates $1. Shalom.